Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to start by sharing the Teacher Action Toolkit PDF, first of all, just go through the content with you. And then following that, I'm going to share with you the PowerPoint that supports the assembly. The assembly resource is within the PDF that I'll be showing first of all. And the PowerPoint has the animation that we're really excited to show you embedded within that. So it'll be two cases of sharing, and hopefully I share them properly. So and can you see that now? Yeah, so this is the Teacher Action Pack. It's our latest Faith in the Nexus resource, and it is a real showcase. The first page here, although you most probably won't be able to read it, the first page takes the reader to information about Faith in the Nexus research and also the key findings that were revealed by the research. So really it sets the context for them. And then pages 3 and 4, this is where you find the assembly resource. Now, as you can see, you've got the slides here down the side on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you have a narrative that takes you slide by slide through the assembly. Of course, you don't have to use this narrative. You can use these slides independently and put your own narrative to it. But what we wanted was really to support teachers that maybe just didn't feel confident. It could be a teacher coming into a church school that isn't of faith herself or himself, and actually needs that support to deliver assemblies that are centered on spirituality and faith talk. So really this is the guide by guide step all the way through an assembly. And as you can see, it continues on to page 4. Now I'll come back to that in a minute and talk you through that with the actual PowerPoint slide and showing you the animation. Then page 5, we start to actually showcase the amount of resources that we've now acquired as part of the dissemination of faith in the Nexus. So first of all, we've got our animation here, which is our Faith in the Nexus animation for children, and you've got a direct link to that there. So should you want to use this new animation beyond as a standalone, beyond the assembly, you can go straight to it via this link. We've also got a link to the animation for parents, and this one was about empowering parents and giving them confidence really to have those faith conversations with their children at home. And then this final animation is our original animation, and that was created really to support the Faith in the Nexus report. And again, you've got your links there as well. Then we go over to page 6, pages 6 and 7. This actually highlights the PDFs that we've got available on our Nexus Toolkit. Now, the Nexus Toolkit you can find within our Nexus website. All the links to that are in this booklet as well. We've got, I think now about 10 or 11, I've lost count of these booklets that you can download as they are online. If you want hard copies or if you want PowerPoints that accompany them, please would you contact Jill Harrison, or you can actually use our general email, which is nexus@canterbury.ac.uk. So I don't know, Jill, if you could put those links into the chat for us so that people can pick them up. So these PDFs, they contain a small booklet which gives you nuggets of information on key themes from the research, and each of these booklets has a poster associated with it that contains some very key quotes, some questions as well for discussion. And we've been getting some feedback from various schools saying that they are really enjoying using them. Again, that goes on to 7. So the last page then points you towards our podcasts or video casts. There was a series of 4 of these led by Dr. Anne Casson, and each episode looked at a different aspect of children's spirituality. So Anne Casson was in a conversation with Nick Taunt, who is one of our NICER consultants, and Kieran O'Brien, who is with us today and is the director of Mini Story and the creative mind and brain behind all of this. We wouldn't have done all of this without his support and help. So a massive shout out there for Kieran. He is absolutely brilliant. And then when we come down to this latter half of the page, you get information about our Nexus Toolkit and links to it. Also information about our blogs. Now on our blogs, we have, with Faith in the Nexus, monthly seminars, and the recordings and information about those blogs are placed in, about those seminars are placed in those blogs. So that's a really good link to have. And then there's various ways in which you can keep in contact with us via our bi-monthly newsletter, and literally by contacting NICER or Jill or Nexus, and we can give you more information about the wider and growing resource package that we've got with the Faith in the Nexus. So that essentially is the Teacher's Action Pack. And I don't know, Anne, if you want to speak any more about it while I switch over to the excellent. Okay, then hopefully this all now works. So if you're going to use the Nexus Toolkit on our website, you'll find that there are 2 PowerPoint presentations to opt from. They're both exactly the same in terms of content, but there is one larger file as it has more animation linked to the images, while the other one is smaller because it has less animation. So the choice is yours really in terms of what you wish to download. I'm going to be sharing the larger file with you today. So if you choose to use the script that's in the action pack for this assembly, the first thing is really to encourage the children to think about what spirituality means to them. What does spirituality look like? What does a spiritual moment look like to them? How do they understand spirituality? Now, a confident teacher may be happy to open this up to live responses, but if the teacher doesn't feel confident discussing spirituality with children, maybe ask some of the children beforehand and have them record their answers and then read them to you when you're prompting them. Then you feel a little bit more in control of what they're going to say. But at this stage, it's just about drawing out the children's own views about spirituality. Again, depending on the time allotted for the assembly, giving children space to think about and reflect on what spirituality means to them is core. Just let them have as much thinking time as you can afford for them to consider this question. Following on from this, allow the children time to consciously connect with their inner world. Encourage them to shut their eyes and immerse themselves in their world, to listen to it, to connect with it. And again, give them as much time as you can for this. Let them understand that this inner world is a safe space, a space for prayer and reflection, a space for discovery, for questions, for thoughts, dreams, wishes, those big questions in life. Just take them through a reflective thought process on this and let them become really aware of that lively world within them. And this is then when you gently move them outward and onward by asking them to open their eyes once again and listen to the animation. And hopefully the sound on this now will work.
We all have a spiritual life. When we reflect or pray, we enter our inner world. where we can be with God and we can discover who we are, where we belong, and make sense of the world around us. Setting the foundation to help us to grow and flourish. But too often, we can leave our spiritual life behind when we can no longer make sense of it in our complex and confusing world, especially when we struggle with the big questions such as, why does God let people suffer? Is there really life after death? Is the Bible even true? How do I make sense of science and religion? Is God even real? When we are unable to find the answers to our big questions, we may turn to others for help. Some might tell us not to worry about it. Instead, all we need to do is just believe. Others might give us simple textbook answers that may not always feel right. Some may not know how to respond and suggest that you ask someone else, while others will encourage you to find your own answers to these big questions. It's all up to you. Not knowing which way to turn, it's easier to give up and leave it all behind. We now know there is a better way. When we are struggling to make sense of big questions about God, faith, the Bible, and suffering, rather than looking for simple answers, we should see these big questions as a moment of opportunity, where we step into our inner world and let these big questions take us on a journey. A journey where we discover more about ourselves, each other, and about God. We may not find the answers we were originally looking for. After all, answers provide a full stop, and we don't need that on our spiritual journey. Instead, we should see these big questions as an opportunity to go deeper, because the deeper we go, the more our spiritual life comes alive, where we open ourselves up to discovering something far more important, a deeper sense of meaning and purpose to our lives. And with this, we grow in confidence to go out into the world and flourish.
Now, once they've actually sat and listened to the animation, it really is bringing together their initial thoughts, their own thoughts, and then the journey that they've been on and the story that they've listened to through this animation, and give them time to think and reflect. Again, we have some questions that we've put within the teacher action pack, some of which you may wish to ask. I wouldn't say ask them all, but possibly pick out ones that you think are relevant to your context and the children that you have in front of you. It could be that you wish to ask your own questions, but some of the ones that we've got in the teacher action pack for the children to consider is, when do you reflect and think? Who do you share your inner world with? When might you think about God? And what one question would you ask of God? If you do have a big question, who do you ask about it? Now, these are questions that you give space to in between for them to either reflect or to respond to. But again, this would all be time dependent, but it is important that they have time to respond and to think. And then that moves them into, what does the Bible actually teach us? Now, again, within the pack, we have a suggested Bible reading from 1 Corinthians, but other Bible passages are also included, which may be a bit more accessible for, say, younger students in Key Stage 1, and they could explore those. But at least it gives you a choice of different Bible texts that you could use in connection with this. And then it's bringing the assembly to an end with a closing prayer. Again, you could use this one of your own, or one that the children have created. But that, in a sense, is the assembly pack that we have ready for you. And I'm really sorry with the disturbance at the beginning trying to get this shared. So I'll stop sharing that for a moment.
It was fine, and it went well in the end, and I think it just really showcased the animation.
Yeah,
I think one of the things we were prepared to say, because is that although we've focused this within a church school, and the language we've used is rooted it within that, it can be adapted and it can be open. We were wondering whether there were some people on here who might have been on who are from the Christian tradition, and you can see how they can use the animation through any tradition, and to adapt the assembly, adapt the PowerPoints as needs be, as to fit with say a different type of audience. But I think it was quite important from our point of view that what we were doing with this is within a church school framework, and the idea that spirituality, spiritual being, is rooted within the Christian tradition.
Yeah, we had a number of schools that trialled this for us, and we've had some really good feedback, some very positive and honest feedback. Two of the schools, they said that while it worked very well with Key Stage 2, and what they chose to do was they chose to use the script that we had produced in the pack as well. They didn't venture away from that. And they were saying with Key Stage 2, it worked extremely well. Children were eager to ask questions. In fact, in one school, a couple of the children said, I never thought we could ask questions like this. And it's really good that we've heard the child in the animation asking the questions that we've always wanted to ask, and yet we've not had the confidence to ask them. And since that showing of that animation with the assembly, they've said children are coming forward with really deep and meaningful questions, and quite challenging questions. And as I say, those two schools said it didn't work as well with Key Stage 1. They found that the language was a little bit too difficult, although one of the schools said that they used it with Key Stage 1, and they used it as a learning opportunity to unpack that language more, and to dig deeper, and they felt that it had worked with Key Stage 1 once that had happened.
Just to pick up a little bit there, and the other thing was a few people have suggested Key Stage 3. We obviously haven't trialled it with Key Stage 3, but I could see how it could be adapted and used with those. To pick up Jill's question about multi-faith, we haven't trialled it in any multi-faith schools, but I could see how the animation could work and be used, and it would just need shaping of the PowerPoint. But that's enabled to do that, to sort of make sure it's in focus, is to be inclusive without losing anything of the point of what we're trying to get across.
Is there anyone here that has actually used it yet at all? We'd be really interested to hear on any feedback if you have used it. Not yet. Well, if you do use it, we would really like that feedback, because we're always looking at improving what we're offering in terms of resources. So that would really help us. You can email either Jill, or if you go through to nexus@canterbury.ac.uk, we would love to hear, especially if you're using it with Key Stage 1, especially if you are secondary trained and you use it with Key Stage 3, and any responses that you may have beyond the Christian faith to this assembly.
Thank you, Anne. I think we've got a few minutes now if anybody else has got any other questions. I think one of the areas that we are exploring, as somebody else has put in about multi-faith schools, is how relevant, and Kieran hasn't heard this yet, how relevant are the Nexus resources for working with community schools? And it's one of the areas we're going to be exploring in the next few months. what would we need to adapt them? You know, how are the shaping, how is the focus, without losing our emphasis on spirituality, spiritual being within a Christian tradition? I don't think you need to apologize for that, but how do you adapt the resources so they're accessible within multi-faith contexts and non-faith contexts?
If you bear with me, and if this works, I'm going to show you one more resource that Kieran's put together for us. It's the promo video. That will be shared on our social media links. Please, if you see it, share it as widely as you can, because we want to get that out there, and we will be sharing it ourselves from our own platform. I think one of the best pieces of information we got back from the school is that one teacher had used this that really was not confident with spirituality, Christian faith. She literally picked up the action pack, the PowerPoint and the animation, and she ran with it, and she said she enjoyed it as much as the children. She got quite a lot from it. So, you know, she really did feel quite empowered by that support that she had. So it was really good to hear somebody that wasn't experienced using it and using it well.